Apple does this better than anyone. Apple has made a risky bet on an augmented reality headset. The new Apple Vision Pro looks like a pair of ski goggles and lets people overlay virtual images on live videos of the real world. Folks who got real excited about Google Glass or Oculus might be rolling their eyes right now. A big bet on the metaverse or augmented reality might seem a bit of a stretch. But hold on a minute. Apple does something better than any other company, and they may strike gold again. But before we get started, please like and subscribe, and check the links in the description after the video to join my Patreon. What Apple does better than any other company is to seize the moment. Now, I've been pretty open about my blind spot when it comes to Apple in the past, and how I've missed on several opportunities to invest heavily. I do not have an intuitive understanding of the power of a brand. I'm simply too logical and technically oriented to have ever looked at an Apple product and not discovered some flaw that would expose Apple to its competitors. I've been wrong about this company at every turn, and I think I've figured out why. The real secret to Apple's success is that the leadership of the company is very good at recognizing where other companies fail with existing products. You see, Apple does not really come up with great new product ideas. They find big problems with existing ideas that no one is addressing, usually design or interface. Then they release something that solves those problems and build a software ecosystem around that product and sell third-party developed software or content for the device. You don't believe me? Think about the products that Apple released in the years after Steve Jobs returned to Apple in 1997. Now, it's hard for me to wrap my head around this, but many folks watching this video probably aren't old enough to remember the impact that the iPod had on Apple. You may know what it is, but you may not remember that the iPod is what made Apple a household name again. You see, when Steve Jobs returned to Apple in 1997, the company was on the brink of bankruptcy, and virtually no one was interested in their products other than people in a few select industries. The Apple software development community was basically dead, which at that time meant that software offerings for Apple products were pretty slim. But then Steve Jobs announced the release of the iPod. It became a series of portable media players and multi-purpose mobile devices. The first version was released on October 23, 2001, about 8.5 months after the Macintosh version of iTunes was released. Apple sold an estimated 450 million iPods over the lifetime of the product. Now, most people remember the iPod as the first portable MP3 player. That, however, is not even remotely true. Apple did not invent the portable MP3 player. Portable MP3 players had existed since the mid-1990s. In fact, I owned one from a company called Rio and actually worked for a company involved with the promotion of the Rio PMP 300. It was about the size of a deck of cards, had an LED screen and a circular pad with control buttons, about 8 hours of playtime powered by a single AA battery, and it's shipped with 32 megabytes of memory. You could add more, and at the time, I thought it was pretty awesome. But Apple found all existing digital music players big and clunky or small and useless, with user interfaces that were unbelievably awful. They identified weaknesses in pretty much all existing models' attempts to negotiate the trade-off between capacity and portability. Flash memory-based players held too few songs, while hard drive-based models were just too big and heavy. Apple recognized a device with potential, some big problems, and a lack of people trying to solve those problems. They decided to develop their own MP3 player. They also recognized that through iTunes, they had the ability to capture a market and sweep it into the Apple technology ecosphere, giving them a huge customer base to market their next new product. I'm only going to talk about one other example here, although there are at least 4 more I could cover in this video. The smartphone. I've had dozens of people over the years tell me that Apple invented the smartphone or the touchscreen phone. Neither one of these is true. Smartphones in one form or another had been evolving since the mid to late 1990s, when the capabilities of portable digital assistants and cell phones started to merge. Qualcomm, BlackBerry, Ericsson, Kyocera, Nokia, and other companies all had smartphones developed between 1999 and 2002, all with problems in function or interface. The early to mid 2000s saw a shift in smartphone interfaces away from devices with keyboards to touchscreens, with LG actually offering in late 2006 what I thought was the first complete package. LG released the Prada model smartphone. Yes, designed in collaboration with that Prada. It had a 240 by 400 screen, a 2 megapixel digital camera, video recording ability, and more. It was the best smartphone on the market, hands down, for a month. Just a month. In January of 2007, Apple Computer introduced the iPhone. It had a touchscreen, it had twice the resolution of most smartphone screens at the time, and introduced multi-touch to phones, which allowed things like pinching to zoom in or out on photos, maps, and web pages. The iPhone was notable as being the first device of its kind targeted at the mass market to abandon all the stuff you needed to operate other smartphones, like the use of a stylus, a keyboard, or keypad. The real secret to the iPhone's success, though, was the operating system. Apple's operating system was powerful enough not to require it to use a limited, stripped-down web browser that could only render pages specifically formatted for smartphones. It ran a version of Apple's Safari browser that could easily render full websites not specifically designed for phones. A year later, the iPhone App Store opened after the release of a developer kit, initially with 500 apps. The software business for iPhones exploded. Recently, Apple said that it has paid $320 billion to developers, up from $260 billion as of last year, a jump of about $60 billion. Developers receive somewhere between 70 and 85% of gross sales, depending on if they qualify for Apple's reduced rate. Apple not only took a product and brought it into the mainstream, they created an entire industry around it. They also did this with the iPad, Apple TV, and to a lesser extent, the Apple Watch and AirTag. I would not bet against Apple threading the needle again when it comes to augmented reality or metaverse applications. I am sure that what Apple sees are big problems with ways to interface with augmented reality and virtual reality, a lack of a software ecosystem for the metaverse, and what some analysts at Citibank are calling a $13 trillion opportunity in the metaverse. I think ultimately what Apple sees is a device-agnostic metaverse opportunity where you can access it through PCs, game consoles, smartphones, and Apple Vision Pro. Apple Vision Pro is the hook that reels you into a closed Apple metaverse that is not community-owned, not community-governed, or freely interoperable, but extremely profitable. Apple has demonstrated time and time again that freedom is not what the consumer desires when it comes to their technology choices. Apple consumers are loyal to the Apple ecosystem. What their customers want is sleek design, a simple interface, and software that works with the device. I would not bet against Apple doing what Apple does best. Apple Vision Pro is about seizing the moment. Just my opinion, folks. This is not an endorsement to buy, hold, or sell any security. You have to do your own due diligence. Please like and subscribe and check the links in the description after my video to join my Patreon. Thank you very much and have a nice day.